Little boy, we're gonna call this a Mylar rap. Pee-wee's gonna call it a Mylar nap. It's Friday night. That means good times. You're a fool.
I said you'll have fun, and I won't disappoint you.
Welcome, fellow Kiss fans. Welcome to It's All For You Demons, celebrating the fun of being a Kiss fan. And tonight, we're celebrating a collection complete. It's a wrap. One part of a merch form. Done. And that is the double platinum merch form. And I kind of set out to see if I could finish an entire merch form. And the reason I did that is I like to imagine like a 9-year-old kid, 1978, getting this merch form in the album and themselves plotting out like their birthday, Christmas, their mowing allowance money would be spent on all of this stuff. They would want to have every bit of this in their room. And I've mentioned this before, but what started all of this was when Peter Arquette was clearing out his business. The promo poster for the Mylars showed up, and I've always been fascinated with promo posters, and I thought this would just be cool to have in the basement. So the promo poster showed up, and then I thought, long shot, let's try to get all of these.
Meanwhile,
and the final piece of this puzzle arrived a few weeks ago, group shot number 2. And I have to say, like, as these arrived, I did get that feeling of being like a 9-year-old kid, 1978, waiting for your new Kiss poster to arrive in the mail. And these are so freaking cool. This foil Mylar phenomenon that I have missed out on my entire Kiss collecting life blew me away as an adult. And I'm very smitten with these posters. And just to recap, Gene, group shot number 1, Ace, Paul, and Peter, completing one section of the double platinum merch form. And I always thought it was kind of weird that they grouped the 4 shots up here and then the group shot number 2 down here. Group shot number 1 isn't even on this merch form. 4 shots up here, group shot number 2 below. Always thought that was kind of weird, but I wonder if it was because there's a special deal where if you order all 4 of the single shots for only $12. Can you freaking imagine that? But I always thought that was weird, and no group shot number 1 at all. That's funny. So in the quest to complete a full-on merch form, the only merch forms I'm close to doing that with, not even close at all, but progress is good, is the double platinum merch form, all 4 solo Mylars, group shot number 2, the black logo belt buckle, and the Alive 2 tour book. But that's it for double platinum. Long way to go still, and we'll get to the question of the hour here in a minute. Because first I would like to discuss the Rock and Roll Over merch form, and that's a merch form there's progress on. Now the Rock and Roll Over merch form, which may be kind of the most fun merch form in existence to me, because I love the survey on the back. This is like marketing at its best, like asking, kids, what's your favorite radio station, what are your favorite magazines, your favorite TV shows, because they want to know their demographic. And I love that because as Kiss fans, we saw this demographic change so much. Teenagers to elementary school kids. Now with the Rock and Roll Over merch form, I have made significant progress on this by happenstance. I wasn't even thinking of doing merch form focused collecting, but, and this is the beauty of collecting Kiss, because once you get one item that continues to appear on merch forms, you got it for every merch form, the black belt buckle.
Perfect.
Now I need the Rock and Roll Over belt buckle pretty bad. I have the Destroyer, and I have the Love Gun. And sadly, I slept on that Rock and Roll Over belt buckle back when belt buckles were reasonable. They start at $300 and the max is in the thousands. And that is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Belt buckles should be $75 to $125, $150-ish tops. And I slept on Rock and Roll Over back then, and every time it pops up now, it's in the twos. And that's, as a collector, you hit that moment where you're like, do I want to throw all my chips in for one item, or do I want to take $200 and buy a couple albums and some other small fun stuff? These are the pain points of Kiss collecting. Beyond the Rock and Roll Over belt buckle, the songbook. And oddly, this is one of the very first items I ever had as a teenager. Some cool photos in there. Take a look at this real quick. I think these photos are also present in the Rock and Roll Over tour book, if I'm not mistaken. Speaking of, the Rock and Roll Over tour book is also on the merch form. And mine is completely bent in half. If you can see, somebody had bent this. And it was fun because I actually saw another collector on Instagram post their Rock and Roll Over tour book, and it was also bent in half. And so it makes me wonder, did kids get these at the show and bend them to put them under their arm? Or did they bend them and stick them inside of the Rock and Roll Over album? That's even more fun to consider. So, some Kiss fan fun right there. And the whole reason I bought this tour book was the iron-on inside. I have an iron-on fetish, I guess you could call it. And this iron-on is just super cool inside a tour book. You often see them with the iron-on cut out because kids would want to actually bend this tour book, put it inside their Rock and Roll Over, and then later on ask their mom to make them a Kiss iron-on shirt. And it does have a whole list of goodies there to get. And I believe this merch form is different than the album merch form. And it is because the Rock and Roll Over belt buckle on the album merch form seems to be like a prototype. And the belt buckle on the tour book merch form is the actual Pacifica Rock and Roll Over belt buckle. And then the last check off of the rock and roll, that's a Star Trek character.
I was making a little joke, sir.
Extremely little, Ensign.
The last check off of the Rock and Roll Over merch form is Destroyer foil poster. Which, it's kind of wild they didn't make a Rock and Roll Over foil poster, but with the Rock and Roll Over artwork being circular, probably didn't translate well to the gigantic Boutwell poster. But this thing's a beauty, man. I tell ya, I didn't discover these foil or Mylar posters until my adulthood, and that was a mistake because these are beauties. And just again, that imagining a kid in 1976 getting something off of merch form and putting it on their wall, this is pop freaking culture fun right here. So the question of the hour was going to be, when I set out to do this video, I was going to talk about merch forms and completing a merch form. And the question of the hour was going to be, when do you call it complete? Do you call it complete when it's all the way done, or do you call it complete when a majority of it is done? Because a lot of this stuff is so expensive anymore. It's like, do you really want to even attempt to get it all? Sometimes stuff, you never really see it pop up. Case in point, the double platinum photo set. You rarely see that pop up, and it is often forged, fraud, faked, counterfeit. That's the word I'm looking for. Counterfeit. Or it's on eBay and it's like $300. Do you really want to spend $300 on this photo set? So originally I was going to say when a majority of it is complete, we call it closed. But that's not the fun of collecting. I wisened up, saw the error of my ways right as I hit record, and I was like, you know what? Nothing is impossible. Everything can be achieved, and it just takes time. And that's the fun of collecting, is it takes time. And little by little, maybe you can obtain one photo from this photo set, and then years later, another piece of that photo set. This is case in point of waiting, and it takes a long time. To complete the Halloween costume set, I was missing the Ace Frehley costume. Took 5 to 7 years. It was a very, very long time. Finally came together. The whole collection is complete, and that is the fun of collecting. Now, we're all getting older. We're gonna be dead soon, so time is running out. I'm just joking. There's no such thing as time. Everyone live in the moment and enjoy it, because that is the fun of this. And so plotting out a merch form to collect, living in the moment, is fun. And that is what this whole thing's about. It's not about one-upping. It's not about I've got this and you don't, nanny nanny boo boo. It is about fun. It is about passion, fun, collecting. I think any fan of a band, you are a collector, because no matter what, even if you don't collect merch, guarantee you have every album in vinyl form, cassette form, CD, or streaming. You have every album, so you are a collector. That kind of stuff, man, that is fun, and that is what is the joy of life. You know, life is too convoluted with serious shit that no one cares about, especially election years. You gotta love it. Everyone's panties are in a bunch and everyone hates each other and screaming at each other. Well, don't focus on that. Focus on this, the fun of being a Kiss fan. Keep collecting, keep having fun. Always remember, one day your dreams can come true. Case in point, this little man dumped off at an establishment by his previous owner. Come on, for real. This little guy had to be scared to death. But guess what? Now his dreams have come true, because he's living in the Wax Night house, waxing Kiss nostalgia every Friday night. And we thank you for hanging with us. Take care, be safe, be good to your babies. Spay, neuter, microchip. And I mean it. Keep your head up. Life is good. Life is nothing more than a dog nap, a good movie, and a good Kiss record. Dogs, nostalgia, Kiss. Take care, be safe. We will talk to you